Ava, get up. That chair belongs to Lily now, because from today on, she's my daughter too. My husband said it into the polished silence of the Founders Hall at Hawthorne Academy, in front of 200 parents, teachers, donors, and local business owners who had come to celebrate the 8th grade arts showcase. Ava still had blue paint beneath her fingernails. The engraved plaque for her community mural rested against her chest, and 10 seconds earlier, she had been smiling so hard that a dimple appeared in her left cheek. Then her father told her to surrender her place at our family's table to another girl. Adrian had not arrived alone. Veronica Lane walked beside him in a cream dress, her hand placed lightly inside his elbow as if she had practiced the entrance. She had been his high school girlfriend, the woman he had spent 19 years describing as an unfinished chapter from a life before. Responsibility. Beside her stood a girl about Ava's age, thin and solemn, with a satin magnolia pin fastened to her cardigan. Veronica wore the same pin. My mother had drawn that magnolia 24 years earlier for the logo of my first design portfolio. I had turned it into the emblem of Magnolia House Interiors, the studio I built from a rented room above a dry cleaner into one of San Antonio's most respected small design firms. The pins were never sold. I gave them only to my mother, my business partner, and Ava. Why are they wearing my family's pins? I asked. Adrian set a black leather folder on the table reserved for us. Don't start, Natalie. I told you this morning that our marriage was over. Veronica and Lily are not going to hide because you can't accept the truth. This morning. That was how he reduced 19 years of marriage to 4 minutes beside our kitchen island. While I poured coffee and sliced strawberries for our daughter. He had come home after sunrise from a high school reunion in Corpus Christi. His shirt smelled like hotel soap, and there was glitter near one cuff. Without sitting down, he told me he had found the only woman who loved me before anyone cared what I could provide. Veronica was divorced, deeply in debt, and raising Lily alone. According to Adrian, walking away from her a second time would make him a coward. You can help an old friend without destroying your daughter, I had said. You've always known how to land on your feet, he answered. Veronica hasn't. Now, inside our daughter's school, he was using my strength as permission to discard me. The advancement director approached with the careful smile people wear when they realize a private disaster has become public. Mr. and Mrs. Varela, the benefactor photograph is about to begin. Should I arrange your family together? Adrian slipped an arm around Veronica's shoulders. Of course. Natalie knows how to behave for Ava's sake. Phones rose around us. Adrian and I were familiar faces at museum openings and school fundraisers. His custom furniture company sponsored Hawthorne's annual design scholarship. My studio had redesigned the library at cost. He knew exactly what a photograph of him with Veronica would say. He wanted me frozen at the edge of the frame, the wife who had already been replaced but had not yet received permission to disappear. Veronica examined Ava's plaque. Lily will be enrolling here this fall. Adrian thinks the girls can become sisters if the adults don't make everything difficult. Ava pressed the plaque harder against her chest. Dad, are you leaving our house? He crouched, but he did not touch her. You'll have 2 homes, princess. That can be a good thing. And you'll learn to share. Lily has been through a lot. Pain crossed Ava's face so openly that several strangers looked away. Don't demand maturity from her while you replace her in public, I said. Adrian gave a short, humorless smile. This is what you do when you're not controlling the room. You turn dramatic. You'll keep the house, your pretty studio, and more than enough money. Don't turn my chance to be happy into some tragedy. Veronica shifted her purse. The black folder slid open, and a document fell onto the white tablecloth. I recognized Hawthorne's crest, Lily's name, and an automatic payment authorization. Beneath it was the account number for the education investment fund my mother and I had built for Ava since the week she was born. I picked up the page. You're paying Lily's tuition from Ava's college fund? Adrian snatched it from my hand. Lower your voice. It's a temporary allocation. Once you sign the separation agreement, we'll reorganize everything. That fund has one purpose. Money is money, Natalie. Ava already has every advantage. One child should not be denied an opportunity because her mother is jealous. Veronica adjusted Lily's magnolia pin without looking at my daughter. Ava's tears began to fall silently. Then she placed her award on the table. I don't want the picture anymore, she whispered, and ran toward the courtyard. I moved after her, but Adrian closed his hand around my forearm. If you drag her out now, everyone will see that you can't think about anyone except yourself. I pulled free so hard that his champagne glass struck the floor. The crystal broke with a bright, vicious sound. Every conversation in Founders Hall stopped. I don't need everyone to believe me today, I said. I need my daughter never to hear you call her selfish for bleeding where you cut her. I found Ava behind the auditorium, curled on the low stone wall beside the herb garden. When I sat down, she wrapped both arms around me with the desperate strength she had used as a little girl during thunderstorms. "Mom," she said into my shoulder, "if I were prettier or funnier, would Dad stay?" That question ended my marriage more completely than any affair could have. I held her face between my hands. "Your father did not leave because anything is missing in you. He is making a choice that says something about him, not about your worth." My phone vibrated before I could say more. It was a message from my business partner, Inez Carter. "Do not sign anything. Adrian sent our Casa Laurel plans to the Marlowe Hotel and listed Veronica as creative director. I found transfers from Ava's account too. He plans to present your work as hers tomorrow night." I looked through the auditorium windows. Adrian had already returned to the photographer. Veronica stood beside him. Lily occupied Ava's chair, and the three of them faced the cameras beneath the Hawthorne banner like a family unveiling itself. I drew my daughter closer. "He thinks he can steal an entire life and still be applauded for it." Ava followed my gaze. Her cheeks were wet, but her voice had changed. "Can he?" "No," I said. "Not anymore." I had spent years protecting Adrian from the consequences of his worst instincts. When he missed Ava's dance recitals, I said he was working. When he belittled my studio as a hobby, I reminded myself that he praised me in public. When he used our joint credit line to rescue his company from a bad expansion, I rearranged my project calendar and carried us through. I had confused keeping peace with keeping a family. That afternoon, I stopped. Inez was waiting at the studio with every lamp turned on and a red binder spread across our materials table. Magnolia House occupied a converted 1920s pharmacy in the Pearl District, with tall windows, white oak shelves, and a long, scarred work table Ava had used for years as her after-school desk. I had founded the firm when she was 3. I designed spaces. Inez turned sketches into budgets, contracts, and construction schedules that never missed a deadline. Adrian called the work beautiful little rooms, even after our revenue helped his furniture company survive 2 recessions. "Tell me I'm wrong," I said. Inez's expression told me she could not. "Casa Laurel is worse than I thought. The Marlowe paid a $240,000 design deposit 2 months ago. Adrian asked them to route it through Varela Custom Furnishings because he was supplying the millwork. He told their attorney Magnolia had agreed to a joint contract." She opened the binder. An email from Adrian promised to introduce Veronica as the visionary behind the Marlowe's new boutique property. Attached was a photograph of my scale model. My signature had been cropped out and replaced with his company's gold logo. "Why would he believe he could do this?" I asked, though I already knew. "Because while you're fighting a divorce, he expects people to dismiss everything you say as revenge. And because for years, you've let clients think his company and your studio are one family operation." I sat at the work table and opened the transaction history Inez had printed. Adrian was the account owner on Ava's education portfolio because the financial advisor who created it had been his college roommate. My mother and I had supplied most of the contributions, but Adrian controlled withdrawals. Over 7 months he had removed $86,400, accepting taxes and penalties without telling me. The money paid the security deposit on a high-rise condo overlooking the River Walk, Lily's enrollment fee, a private math tutor, and purchases at a luxury boutique. The cream dress Veronica wore to the school was there. So were 2 custom magnolia pins ordered from the jeweler who made mine. He had paid for the symbols of our replacement with our daughter's future. I did not cry when I saw the condo. I did not cry over the dress. I cried when I saw a $312 receipt for the pins, because Ava had once asked if she could have my mother's original pin on her wedding day. Adrian knew what that symbol meant. He had not borrowed it accidentally. He had turned it into a costume. "We need a lawyer tonight," Inez said. "We need 2. Family law and intellectual property." For the first time all day, she smiled. "There you are." We did not go home. Inez lived in a renovated bungalow 10 minutes from the studio, and she made up her guest room for Ava. My daughter slept in one of my sweatshirts, curled around the sleeve. I sat at the foot of the bed until after midnight, watching her breathe and trying not to imagine Adrian carrying boxes into a condo purchased with her money. He called 17 times. His messages moved from irritation to injured dignity. "You humiliated me. Bring my daughter home. We can handle this like adults. Veronica is crying because of what you did." The last one arrived at 1:12 a.m. "If you interfere with tomorrow's presentation, I will tell everyone you are unstable and that I had to protect the businesses from you." I took screenshots and forwarded everything to Lauren Kim, the family attorney Inez had reached through a client. Lauren called me at 6:30 the next morning. "Do not answer him verbally," she said. "Communicate in writing. Do not empty accounts, do not threaten him, and do not enter the condo. I'm filing for temporary orders preserving marital assets and restricting Further withdrawals from Ava's fund. His threat helps us, but we need clean hands. What about the hotel? That is your intellectual property lawyer's lane. Public embarrassment may feel satisfying, but evidence is what keeps the satisfaction from becoming expensive. Her calmness steadied me. I had been so accustomed to managing Adrian's moods that I expected every conflict to require improvisation. Lauren gave the chaos names: dissipation of marital assets, breach of fiduciary duty, financial misconduct, coercive control. Once named, his behavior looked less like passion and more like a record. At 9 o'clock, I took Ava to rehearsal for Hawthorne's spring dance performance. We had barely entered the studio when Adrian appeared at the doorway carrying a box wrapped in pink paper. I need to speak to my daughter. Ava went still behind me. Her instructor turned off the music. Adrian lowered his voice, performing tenderness for the room. Princess, I don't want you upset with me. I brought the headphones you wanted. Lily has her admissions interview today, and afterward the 4 of us can have lunch. The 4 of us? Ava asked. You, me, Veronica, and Lily. Your mom needs time to process things. My daughter looked at the box, then at him. I needed you to be my dad when you embarrassed me in front of everyone. I don't need headphones. She stepped around him without touching the gift. Adrian's face tightened. He waited until the studio door closed behind her. You are turning her against me. You used her money to buy the apology gift in your hand. His eyes flickered. That account belongs to me. The statements say otherwise. You have no idea how our finances work. It was an old trick. Adrian handled a document I had not seen, then acted as if my ignorance proved incompetence rather than concealment. Before that morning, I often responded by demanding details, which allowed him to move the argument from what he had done to what I supposedly failed to understand. This time I simply said, my attorney will. The color left his face for half a second. Then he smiled. Be careful. Lawyers can make a painful situation permanent. You made it permanent in Founders Hall. As he walked away, a woman near the parking lot raised one hand. She introduced herself as Claudia Ruiz, a classmate of Adrian and Veronica's. I remembered her vaguely from holiday cards. I saw what happened yesterday, she said. And I think you need this. On her phone was a group chat from the reunion. Weeks before the event, Veronica had asked which men from their graduating class had become successful and which were married. After someone mentioned Adrian's furniture company and posted a photograph of us at a gala, Veronica replied that first love sometimes deserved a second chance. She then asked the organizer to seat her beside him. Another message showed Adrian offering to pay for her hotel room before they had even met again. She has been telling people they just looked at each other and realized fate had waited 20 years, Claudia said. That's not what happened. She arrived looking for a door. I did not need Veronica to be a monster. Adrian had made vows to me, not her. But the messages dismantled his favorite story, that he was a noble man rescuing an abandoned woman, powerless before a love purer than marriage. Why are you helping me? I asked. Claudia's mouth tightened. Because my father left my mother at a church fundraiser and made her stand there while he introduced his girlfriend. Everyone called it personal and kept eating. I was 12. I still remember the sound of the forks. She sent me the screenshots. Before leaving, she touched my arm. People often stay silent because they don't know which person in the room will survive the truth. You look like you will. The second blow came that afternoon. Mark Dalton, the general manager of the Marlowe Hotel, entered my studio carrying rolled plans and visible confusion. Natalie, are you really not attending tomorrow's opening? He asked. Adrian said you withdrew because of emotional issues and that the revised vision belongs to his new creative director. Inez placed my dated sketchbooks, material approvals, invoices, and site photographs on the table. The vision is here, with the woman who created it. Mark studied the first watercolor, a sunlit lobby beneath restored brick arches, with hand-painted tile rising like blue vines behind the front desk. He compared it to the construction photographs. Then he read Adrian's emails. I can't cancel the opening, he said. Investors, travel writers, and the preservation board are already coming. But I will not participate in fraud. You have the right to present your work. Will you put that in writing? He met my eyes. Yes. After he left, my intellectual property attorney, Samuel Price, called. He had reviewed our corporate records and found something I had forgotten. 11 years earlier, when Magnolia House licensed 3 furniture designs to Adrian's struggling company, I had insisted on a clause returning all project-specific design rights to my studio if his company misrepresented authorship. Adrian had complained that the language was insulting. Then, needing my designs to secure a bank loan, he signed it. His attempt to claim Casa Laurel may have activated the clause, Samuel said. If so, he didn't just fail to steal your hotel. He may have returned ownership of the entire Laurel furniture collection to you. It was the first reversal Adrian had written with his own hand. But Samuel warned me not to celebrate. A contract right is not self-enforcing. Preserve every file. Tomorrow, say only what you can prove. Let him be the reckless one. At 4:18, my phone rang from an unknown number. I'm not calling to apologize, Veronica said. Her voice sounded stripped of the softness she had worn at Hawthorne. Then why are you calling? Because Adrian promised me a life, but this morning I heard him tell his attorney that if the withdrawals from Ava's account became a problem, he would say I pressured him. He plans to make me the reason for everything. You stood beside him while my daughter cried. Silence stretched between us. Yes, she said at last. I did. I wanted what you had so badly that I told myself the cruelty was temporary. That shame is mine. But I recorded him after I realized he was preparing to blame me. In the recording, he admits the account, the condo, and your designs. I'll send it. Why should I trust an edited recording? From you? You shouldn't. Have someone verify it. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm giving you a reason not to trust him. The audio arrived 2 minutes later. Adrian's voice was calm and faintly amused. Natalie will fold. She always fixes everything so Ava doesn't suffer. Once Veronica is introduced as the creative director at Casa Laurel, my wife won't be able to object without looking bitter. If the account becomes an issue, Veronica begged me to help her child. People forgive a father for being generous. I listened twice. On the second play, I noticed Ava standing in the studio doorway. I did not know how much she had heard. She walked toward the work table and placed her school plaque on top of my sketches. Mom, don't let him take this from you too. For months, even before I knew there was another woman, I had been protecting the image of Adrian as a good father who happened to be busy. I thought preserving that image protected Ava. In that moment, I understood that what might save her was not another excuse for him. It was watching her mother stop bowing her head. Tomorrow we get my name back, I said. After that, we build a home where nobody has to compete for love. That promise sounded brave inside the studio. It became harder to hold 20 minutes later, when Lauren called to say Adrian had filed his own emergency motion. He accused me of abducting Ava from the marital home, interfering with his parental relationship, and planning to sabotage both family companies during what he called an acute emotional episode. Attached to his filing were 3 statements from employees at Varela Custom Furnishings describing me as erratic. One claimed I had threatened to destroy Casa Laurel if Adrian left me. Another said I had screamed in the office parking lot and frightened staff. I had never met 2 of the employees. Can he take Ava? I asked. Not on these papers alone, Lauren said. But a judge could order immediate exchanges or appoint an evaluator. He filed first and gave the court a clean story. We have to answer with evidence, not outrage. My hands began to shake after the call ended. It was not the public humiliation that broke through my resolve. It was the possibility that Adrian would use the same legal system meant to protect Ava to force her into the condo with Veronica and Lily. Inez closed the studio blinds. Look at me. He filed because he is scared. Scared men can still win. Then we make sure this one doesn't. Ava was drawing at the far end of the table with headphones on. I watched her choose a green pencil and bend over the page. A few hours earlier, she had asked whether another girl's beauty could make her father stop loving her. I wanted to wrap her in a world where no court, bank, or manipulative adult could reach her. But safety built from concealment had already failed us. I told her, in simple language, that her father had asked a judge to decide where she should stay temporarily. No one is asking you to choose between us, I said. You can love Dad and still be hurt. You can say what happened without taking care of either adult's feelings. What if he tells them you made me say it? Then you tell the truth once. You don't have to perform it until everyone is satisfied. She nodded, but the pencil stopped moving. I don't want to sleep at the new place. I will tell Lauren. Will Dad be angry? Probably. I hated the answer, but I would not teach her that truth. Guaranteed a pleasant reaction. His anger is his responsibility. That evening, Samuel's forensic consultant examined Veronica's audio. The file appeared continuous, with device metadata placing it in the Riverwalk condo at 10:43 that morning. Useful, but not magic. Texas allowed a participant in a conversation to record it without the other person's consent, yet Samuel warned that playing private audio at a hotel opening could invite claims unrelated to whether Adrian's words were true. You need a professional correction, not a revenge spectacle, he said. If Adrian lies from the stage and Veronica chooses to respond, that is different. But your first goal is authorship and contract control. His advice irritated the wounded part of me. That part wanted a screen 20 feet tall, every stolen transaction glowing above Adrian's head while the room condemned him. But the woman I wanted Ava to become would not confuse maximum humiliation with justice. I spent the night preparing 2 presentations. The first documented Casa Laurel, dated concepts, client feedback, procurement records, site photographs, and the evolution of every important design decision. The second was private, reserved for lawyers and the hotel's ownership group. It traced the diverted deposit and the transfers from Ava's education account. At 11:30, Mark called again. "We have a problem. Adrian told the lead investor you copied the Casa Laurel concept from Veronica's family home in New Orleans." He produced photographs. My exhaustion sharpened into disbelief. Veronica grew up in Corpus Christi. I know that now. But the photographs show a house with the same tile palette and magnolia motifs. The investor has paused your presentation until authorship is reviewed. Inez leaned close to the speaker. "Send the photographs." They arrived while we waited. I recognized the rooms immediately, not as Veronica's childhood home, but as Maison Celeste, a restored guesthouse outside Lafayette that had appeared in a design magazine 6 years earlier. Adrian had cropped out the publication credits. The resemblance to Casa Laurel was superficial: green tile, lime-washed brick, linen, magnolia artwork. In design, superficial resemblance can still become poison when introduced at the right time. A whispered accusation did not need to survive trial to damage a reputation. It only needed to make investors delay. "He knows the opening is tomorrow," I said. "He doesn't need to prove I copied. He needs to keep me off the stage for 24 hours. Inez searched our archive and found the earliest Casa Laurel sketch, dated 14 months before the magazine. Feature. The paper held a faint ring from the ginger tea I had spilled while drawing. Digital backups confirmed when I scanned it. We also found an email in which Adrian himself praised my magnolia concept 7 years earlier and suggested using it for his furniture line. Samuel sent a formal authorship packet to the investor before midnight. At 12:08, the investor replied that both sides would be allowed 10 minutes at the event, with counsel present, before any public creative introduction. Adrian's fake evidence had not removed me, but it had changed the evening from a celebration into an audition for my own work. The next morning, another truth arrived from a place Adrian had not thought to control. Maya Ellis, his former controller, appeared at Magnolia House carrying a gray laptop and a cardboard file box. Adrian had fired her 6 weeks earlier for what he told me was poor performance. She looked as if she had not slept. "I should have come sooner," she said. I reconciled the Marlowe deposit. "Adrian told me Magnolia approved the transfer, but the authorization had your electronic signature pasted into it. I refused to book it as a legitimate intercompany payment." She opened the laptop and showed us the accounting log. The $240,000 deposit entered Varela Custom Furnishings. Within 48 hours, $110,000 went toward overdue equipment loans, $72,000 funded the condo and Veronica's expenses, and the remainder covered payroll. Adrian had not merely tried to take credit for Casa Laurel. He had spent money owed to my studio before the project opened. "Why did he fire you?" I asked. "Because I saved a copy of the original authorization and asked your office to confirm it." He intercepted my email. Maya's eyes filled. "My severance agreement says I can't disclose company information. I'm afraid he'll sue me." Samuel did not promise her immunity. He explained whistleblower protections, preservation obligations, and the difference between taking records for leverage and reporting suspected fraud through counsel. We copied nothing until he documented the handoff. "I'll testify if I have to," Maya said. "I kept thinking about your daughter's account." He joked that kids with rich grandparents don't miss money. My mother was not rich. She had taught art at a public middle school for 31 years. Every birthday, she deposited what she could into Ava's fund. Adrian saw the final balance and erased the sacrifice behind it. That was the third truth he had underestimated: money remembers who earned it, even when a statement does not show the hours. Lauren used Maya's evidence in our response to his emergency motion. She also attached the message threatening to call me unstable, the school payment authorization, and a declaration from Ava's dance instructor describing Adrian's unannounced confrontation. We asked the court to preserve the education account, prohibit either parent from disparaging the other around Ava, and allow Ava to remain with me until a structured temporary schedule could be set. By noon, the judge declined Adrian's demand for an immediate change of custody and set a hearing for the following week. It was not a final victory. It was enough space to breathe. Adrian sent a single message. "You are making reconciliation impossible." I typed 3 answers and deleted them. Finally, I wrote, "Please communicate through counsel regarding finances. For Ava, use this thread and keep messages child-focused." His reply came instantly. Cold. Exactly what I expected. For 19 years, he had called me capable when he needed labor, calm when he needed forgiveness, and cold whenever I set a boundary. I did not answer. The Casa Laurel opening was held in a restored 1890s merchant house south of downtown. The building had arched brick galleries, a shaded courtyard, and 42 guest rooms arranged around gardens of mountain laurel and rosemary. I had spent 18 months translating its history into modern hospitality: hand-glazed blue-green tile, oak millwork, embroidered textiles commissioned from a women's cooperative, and clay pendant lights shaped from drawings I made at 2 o'clock one morning while Ava slept with her head in my lap. Seeing my ideas become the stage for Adrian's planned triumph hurt less than I expected. The pain had changed shape. It was no longer a wound asking to be closed. It had become certainty. Before I left Inez's house, Ava handed me a folded note. "Don't go back to someone who makes you smaller." I tucked it inside my jacket. My parents stayed with her. I would not make her witness another adult war, no matter how badly Adrian had wanted her in his family photograph. I entered Casa Laurel through the main doors with Inez, Samuel, and Mark. Reporters photographed the tile wall behind us. Investors gathered beneath the clay lights. Adrian stood in the courtyard wearing a midnight blue suit and the expression he used when he believed charm could outrun facts. Veronica was near the bar in a dark green dress. Another magnolia pin gleamed at her shoulder, but she was not beside him. Lily sat at a small table with a hotel employee, twisting a paper napkin in both hands. I had not expected her to be there. The sight of that child steadied something in me. Lily had accepted Ava's chair, but she had not created this betrayal. Adults had recruited 2 girls into a competition neither had chosen. Adrian lifted his glass when he saw me. "Natalie. I thought you might spare yourself the discomfort. I recognize every wall you tried to sign with another woman's name. You're still thinking emotionally. There are investors here. That's why I brought documents." His jaw tightened. Then cameras turned toward us, and the smile returned. The ownership group held the private authorship review in the hotel library. Adrian brought his corporate attorney and 3 presentation boards credited to Veronica. I placed my original sketchbooks on the table. The lead investor, Elaine Porter, was a former bank executive with silver hair and a reputation for ending meetings early when people wasted her time. "Mr. Varela," she said, "you submitted photographs suggesting Mrs. Varela copied another property. Her counsel has produced dated work predating those photographs. Do you have evidence beyond visual similarity?" Adrian leaned back. "Design is collaborative. My wife is gifted, but she romanticizes sole authorship. Veronica inspired the cultural warmth that transformed the project." Veronica stared at him. "I saw the hotel for the first time 3 weeks ago." The room became very quiet. His attorney whispered something. Adrian ignored him. "You discussed your childhood homes with me. Inspiration doesn't require blueprints." "I grew up in a 2-bedroom ranch house near the Naval Air Station," she said. "You told me the photographs were mood references." Elaine turned to me. "Mrs. Varela, can you explain the concept without discussing your marriage?" I opened the first sketchbook. For 10 minutes, I spoke about the building. I explained why the tile climbed only one wall, allowing the original brick to breathe. I showed how the custom bed frames echoed the arches without copying them. I described the local makers, the acoustic changes to the courtyard, and the reason the guest room desks faced inward toward protected gardens rather than traffic. Questions came quickly. I answered each one. No one asked who had been Adrian's first love. When my time ended, Elaine closed my binder. "Authorship is clear to me. The financial issues will be handled separately. The public program should identify Magnolia House interiors and Mrs. Varela as creative lead." Adrian stood. "You're letting a marital dispute dictate a business decision." "No," Elaine said. "I'm refusing to let a marital dispute falsify a business record." His mask slipped. "The contract went through my company. Without my fabrication team, her drawings are paper." Samuel placed the old licensing agreement on the table. "Then you may want your counsel to review Section 14 before making another representation about ownership." For the first time since Founders Hall, Adrian looked frightened. His lawyer requested a recess. Adrian followed him into the corridor, phone already in hand. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I noticed Lily through the library glass. She was alone now, watching her mother from across the courtyard. I walked outside and asked the hotel employee whether I could sit beside her. Lily gave a small shrug. "Your mom is dealing with something difficult," I said. "None of it is your fault." She stared at the magnolia pattern in the tile. "Mr. Adrian said Ava didn't want to meet me because she was spoiled." The cruelty of that lie took my breath for a moment. Ava was hurt by how she learned about everything. "She doesn't know you well enough to blame you. He said this school would make us a real family. A school cannot do that. And a chair cannot do it either." Her eyes lifted to mine. "Am I still going to Hawthorne?" I would not make promises about money or decisions that were not mine. I don't know. But you deserve adults who tell you the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Veronica saw us and crossed the courtyard. For a second, her suspicion returned. Then she heard Lily ask whether Ava hated her, and her face collapsed. No, baby, she said, kneeling. I made choices that hurt another family. That is not yours to carry. Lily began to cry. Veronica held her, and I stepped away. It was not forgiveness. It was the first honest thing I had watched Veronica do. The public program began 30 minutes later. Hundreds of guests filled the courtyard. A travel journalist introduced Adrian as the manufacturing partner, and polite applause followed. He approached the microphone as though the private meeting had never happened. Casa Laurel was born from the courage to begin again, he said. Sometimes a person must leave an old life to discover a new source of inspiration. Tonight, I want to introduce Veronica Lane, my partner and the muse behind this extraordinary transformation. It was not merely a lie. It was defiance. Elaine's face hardened. Mark moved toward the stage, but Veronica reached it first. Adrian held out his hand to her. She did not take it. Veronica removed the magnolia pin from her dress and placed it on the lectern between them. I did not design this hotel, she said. The courtyard went silent except for the fountain. Adrian kept smiling, but the muscles beside his mouth began to tremble. You're overwhelmed. We can talk privately. Private is where you put the truth when you want to sell a lie in public. She faced the guests. Natalie Varela created Casa Laurel. I knew Adrian was married when I began seeing him. I knew he had a daughter, and I let him bring me into her school as if our happiness required humiliating her. I am responsible for that. But I will not accept credit for work I did not create. Adrian reached for the microphone. Mark stepped between them. As general manager, Mark said, I need to correct the program. Casa Laurel's complete interior concept was created by Magnolia House Interiors under Natalie Varela's direction. The screen behind the stage changed. My first signed watercolor appeared, followed by dated client approvals, construction photographs, and an image of me standing beneath the unfinished lobby arches in work boots and a dust mask. The program did not show Ava's account or the condo. This was a professional correction, not the spectacle I had once imagined. It was enough. Reporters lifted their phones. The investors stopped looking at Adrian and looked at the work. Applause began near the back of the courtyard, uncertain at first, then spreading. Inez squeezed my hand so hard our rings pressed together. Adrian took the microphone before Mark could stop him. My wife is presenting routine collaboration as theft because she is angry that our marriage ended. She managed the accounts. She approved the transfers. This entire performance is retaliation. There it was, the final story he had prepared. If charm failed, he would make me responsible for my own robbery. I walked to the stage. You're right about one thing, I said. A hotel opening is not the place to litigate a divorce. That is why my lawyers have preserved the financial records for the proper forum. But authorship belongs here, because this room is the evidence. I pointed to the tile wall, the oak reception desk, the arched bed frame visible through an open guest room door. I drew these. My team documented them. Casa Laurel paid for them. No marriage gives one spouse permission to erase the other's name. Adrian's face reddened. You would have nothing without my company. Magnolia House existed before your first showroom. It kept your company alive when your expansion failed. And the agreement you signed says that if you knowingly misrepresent my authorship, the licensed Laurel collection returns to my studio. A murmur moved through the investors. His attorney closed his eyes. Adrian looked toward Veronica. Tell them what I did for you. The condo, the school, all of it. Tell them you asked me. Veronica's hand moved protectively toward Lily, who stood at the courtyard entrance with the hotel employee. I asked you for help, she said. I did not ask you to steal from Ava. When I learned where the money came from, I should have walked away. I didn't, because I wanted the life you promised. Then I heard you planning to tell your lawyer that everything was my fault. That never happened. I recorded it. Every camera turned toward her. Samuel stepped near me and spoke quietly. Do not direct her. This is her choice. Veronica took out her phone. She did not play the entire recording. She played 28 seconds, the portion in which Adrian said I would surrender to protect Ava and that he could blame Veronica for the withdrawals because people forgave a generous father. His own voice filled the courtyard, relaxed and cruel. When it ended, no one spoke for several seconds. Elaine Porter closed the investment folder in her hands. My group contracted for a hotel project, not misappropriation packaged as a love story. Mr. Dalton, all further dealings with Varela Custom Furnishings are suspended pending legal review. Another owner asked Mark to arrange a meeting with Samuel and me. A magazine editor who had planned to profile Adrian crossed his name off her notes. Adrian stepped down from the stage and moved toward Veronica. "After everything I did for you, you betray me?" She backed away, placing her body between him and Lily. "You did not rescue me. You purchased my gratitude with money that belonged to other people, then called the debt love." He turned to me. The fury disappeared from his face with startling speed, replaced by wounded sincerity. "Natalie, don't throw away 19 years over one terrible mistake. We can fix this privately. I am still Ava's father." For most of our marriage, that shift had worked. Adrian could wound me, then become fragile at the exact moment I considered leaving. His need would activate every habit of care I had mistaken for devotion. This time, I saw the mechanism. Being her father meant protecting her future before buying your new family a view of the river. Being my husband meant honoring the woman beside you before a memory from high school made you feel young. I picked up the magnolia pin Veronica had left on the lectern and held it out to him. He did not take it. "My mother designed this for women who build," I said. "Not for men who take what they were too afraid to create." I set it down and left the stage. Inez walked beside me through the lobby. Behind us, guests did not return to the champagne toast. They formed small, urgent circles around the investors and reporters. Adrian called my name once. I kept walking. Outside, evening rain had begun to darken the sidewalk. I expected triumph to feel loud. Instead, it felt like removing a heavy necklace after forgetting for years that I was wearing it. Mark called 2 days later. Casa Laurel would continue with Magnolia House, and the owners wanted me to complete the remaining 14 rooms without involvement from Adrian's company. I accepted only after Samuel negotiated direct control of the design budget and a public correction of the project credits. The hotel was mine because I had created it, not because a scandal had given it back. The consequences for Adrian arrived through documents rather than dramatic speeches. The court froze the remaining education funds. A forensic accountant traced the $86,400 in withdrawals and the diverted hotel deposit. Adrian's company had to repay Magnolia House under a settlement secured by his ownership interest and the condo lease deposit. The $529 portion of Ava's savings was restored, including the tax penalties caused by his withdrawals. My mother cried when Lauren called, then asked whether the court could also order him to develop character. "That remedy remains unavailable," Lauren said, and even I laughed. The temporary custody hearing lasted 3 hours. Adrian wore a conservative gray suit and spoke about parental alienation. His attorney suggested that my response to the school incident had been theatrical. Then the dance instructor described the pink gift box and Ava's refusal. The Hawthorne advancement director confirmed that Adrian had demanded Ava surrender her chair and had presented Lily as his daughter without warning. Claudia authenticated the reunion messages. Lauren introduced Adrian's threat to label me unstable if I interfered with the hotel. The judge did not call him a monster. She did something more useful. She ordered a structured parenting schedule, prohibited either of us from using Ava as a messenger, required family therapy before overnight visits at any home shared with a romantic partner, and placed financial decision-making for Ava's education with me temporarily. She told Adrian that a child was not required to celebrate the conditions of her parents' separation. Outside the courtroom, he accused me of winning by making him look cruel. "I repeated what you did," I said. "If it looks cruel, speak to the man who did it." For the first 2 months, Ava saw him with a therapist present. She returned from the first visit quiet and asked for grilled cheese. After the third, she said her father had apologized but kept adding the word, however. "He says he was trying to help Lily," she told me. "Helping Lily was not wrong," I said. "Taking from you and shaming you was wrong. Both things can be true. Do I have to forgive him? No one gets to schedule your forgiveness. You do have to decide what boundaries make you feel safe, and those can change." Therapy taught me that I had often translated Adrian's behavior for Ava because I feared her grief. In doing so, I had quietly taught her to doubt what she saw. I stopped saying he missed events because work was crazy. I said he had chosen not to attend and that I did not know why. I stopped promising he would call. If he called, she could answer. If he did not, we did not build our evening around the phone. Veronica moved out of the Riverwalk condo within 3 weeks. The lease had been placed in Adrian's company name, and once the accounts were frozen, the building demanded a new deposit. She found a smaller place near her nursing job and withdrew Lily's Hawthorne application. She sent me a written statement for the financial case and a letter for Ava. I read it with Lauren before deciding whether to share it. "I am sorry I stood beside your pain and treated it as an inconvenience. You did nothing to lose your father's love. Lily did nothing to earn your place. Adults made selfish choices and asked 2 girls to carry them." Ava read the letter twice. "Can I write to Lily?" "If you want to." She drew 2 magnolia flowers on a card and wrote, I don't hate you. I hated the chair thing. I hope your new school is good. Lily answered a week later, I hated the chair thing too. That exchange did not make them sisters. It did something more honest. It freed them from being enemies in someone else's fantasy. Adrian's public image deteriorated faster than his business. Casa Laurel's owners replaced his company on the remaining millwork. 2 clients postponed orders after Maya's accounting evidence became part of the civil filing. Still, his company did not vanish, and he did not become destitute. Real consequences were less cinematic and more precise. He sold his second showroom, refinanced equipment, and agreed to a repayment plan. The employees who had signed false statements admitted that he had dictated them and implied their jobs depended on cooperation. Maya received a settlement for wrongful termination. She used some of it to open a bookkeeping practice for small creative firms. Magnolia House became her first client. Samuel enforced the licensing clause, returning the Laurel furniture collection to my studio. I could have buried Adrian's company by refusing any manufacturing arrangement, but that would have harmed craftsmen who had done nothing wrong. I licensed the work to a worker-owned mill in Seguin and offered positions to 6 of Adrian's senior fabricators. 4 accepted. Inez called it mercy. No, I said. It's good operations. She laughed. There you are again. The divorce took 9 months. Adrian delayed disclosure, challenged valuations, and asked for mediation only after the forensic accountant found that he had used company funds for reunion travel before he supposedly rediscovered Veronica by chance. That was another small collapse in his love story. The reunion had not surprised him. He had messaged Veronica privately for 5 weeks and booked the hotel room himself. In mediation, he offered to restore the marriage instead of dividing the businesses. We built too much to end like this, he said across the conference table. I looked at the man I had loved since my late 20s. I remembered him asleep beside newborn Ava, his hand resting against her back. I remembered dancing in our unfinished first house with sawdust on the floor. The good years were real. So were the years in which he slowly taught me that every good thing depended on my willingness to absorb what he refused to face. We did build a great deal, I said. That is why I know exactly how much labor a life requires. You don't get to burn the structure and call my refusal to move back inside a failure to forgive. The final agreement gave me the house, full control of Magnolia House, the restored education funds, and my project licenses. Adrian retained his furniture company after accounting for what it owed. We shared legal custody under a detailed schedule. The agreement required both parents to protect Ava's therapy and education and barred the use of her funds for anyone else. There were no cheers when I signed. Lauren shook my hand. Inez brought grocery store cupcakes to the parking lot because she knew a champagne celebration would feel false. I ate one in my car and cried for 19 years that had not all been bad and could not be saved. 6 months later, Adrian asked to meet at my studio. I agreed during business hours, with Inez in the next room. He arrived with gray at his temples and a fatigue I had never seen when we lived together. Veronica is gone, he said. She says being with me became nothing but blame, lawyers, and problems. I miss Ava. I miss you. I waited. The old reflex urged me to offer coffee, soften the chair, help him say the difficult thing. I did none of it. I made the worst decision of my life, he continued. But people make mistakes. We were a family for 19 years. I can change. Maybe you can. Hope lifted his face. But you will not practice changing inside my home. You think you're perfect now? No. I think I am no longer responsible for making your failures comfortable. He looked around the studio. On the wall behind me hung the first Casa Laurel watercolor, framed with my signature visible. Everything always mattered more to you than I did. I spent 19 years making your ambitions possible. What you miss is not me. You miss the woman who turned your choices into a functioning life. He stood abruptly. Ava will eventually understand that you kept us apart. Ava will have access to the truth and to both parents. What she understands will be hers. When he left, I closed the door without raising my voice. The click of the latch was softer than the crystal breaking at Hawthorne, yet it felt like the first sound in years that belonged only to me. Adrian did begin to change, though not in the redemptive way he had wanted me to reward in advance. Family therapy forced him to listen when Ava described the chair. For months he tried to explain his intentions. The therapist kept returning him to impact. Eventually, he apologized without, however. I made you feel replaceable, he told her. You weren't. I acted selfishly, and you paid for it. Ava did not hug him. She said, "Thank you for saying it right." Their relationship remained careful. He attended her school events and sat where the school assigned him. He stopped bringing gifts to difficult conversations. I did not manage their bond either toward reconciliation or away from it. 1 year after the opening, Casa Laurel received a Regional Preservation and Design Award. I stood on stage with Inez, Mark, and two of the artisans who had made the lobby tile. This time, when the screen displayed my watercolor, my name was beneath it in letters large enough for the back row. From the stage, I saw Ava between my parents. She held a magnolia folded from green paper. At 15, she had grown taller and more certain in her own body. She no longer asked whether her father preferred another girl. She understood that an adult's abandonment could wound a child without defining her. After the ceremony, a reporter asked whether the scandal had inspired my success. No, I said. The work inspired the success. The scandal only made people look long enough to see who had done it. That night, we ate dinner at home. Ava requested chocolate cake. For years, I had baked guava cake for every celebration because it was Adrian's favorite. Although neither Ava nor I liked it much. I had never considered that detail tragic. It was only one of 1,000 tiny accommodations that had slowly taught our household whose preferences became tradition. I cut 3 slices, one for Ava, one for my mother, and one for me. My father stole frosting from the serving knife. Inez arrived late with sparkling cider and kicked off her shoes beneath the table. Halfway through dessert, the doorbell rang. Ava looked at me. A year earlier, both of us would have gone still, measuring the mood of whoever might be outside. Now she kept eating. It was a delivery driver with a long cardboard tube. Inside was a print from Lily, 2 magnolia trees growing on opposite sides of a river, their branches reaching toward the same clean sky. A note from Veronica said Lily had entered it in her new school's art show and wanted Ava to have a copy. Ava taped it above her desk. "Do you think it means we're friends?" she asked. "I think it means she wanted you to know she remembers." That's enough. Later, after everyone left, I found Ava's paper magnolia beside my framed award. I set my mother's original silver pin next to it. One flower came from the life I inherited. The other came from the daughter who had watched me choose what our life would become. Freedom did not arrive with applause, a court order, or Adrian's regret. It arrived quietly, a small kitchen table, my daughter laughing with chocolate on her fork, my drawings on the shelf, and no one waiting for me to turn his ego into a home. For years, I believed strength meant carrying everything without letting it fall. I know better now. Sometimes strength is hearing glass break in a crowded room and finally refusing to sweep it up for the person who dropped it,